Lawrence LeBrocq, managing partner of Garces, Grabler, and LeBrocq. Here on our podcast, Victim to Victory, it's my pleasure to have Eric LeGrand. I don't think there's anyone better in the country to talk about overcoming tragedy and becoming triumphant. This gentleman, it's a pleasure. I've now known him for about 14 years. I was actually at the game when he was injured. It was a horrific injury. He's an amazing inspiration for everyone in this country to see what you can do when you're tragically injured and how to overcome that. Eric, welcome to the program.
I appreciate you having me, Lawrence.
Oh, it's definitely my pleasure. Now, you're an inspiration to so many, and I hate to take you back to that moment, but tell us a little bit about growing up, since we're neighbors growing up. I'm an Edison guy, you're a Woodbridge Avenel guy. So tell me, what was it like growing up in this area as an athlete? Take me through your high school career and into college.
I loved it, honestly. I grew up where kids went out to the park. Everyone met up at the park in the morning, and you played until the sun went down. And I remember my mom got me a cell phone at an early age of 10 years old, the one where you had to spend the minutes on it, because I would never come home. I would be out in the streets playing all the time, and she would make me come home for lunch every day, and they would have to call me and come find me. But I loved it. I grew up in a very diverse area here at Woodbridge. You're from Edison. You know how it is. We would just hang out all day to whatever sport it was at the time, whether if it was football season, we played football. If it was basketball season, we played basketball. If it was baseball season, you played baseball season. And it just taught me toughness because I was always the younger one, but I was big. I was always big, so I would play with the kids that were older than me, 4 or 5 years older than me. And it just taught me toughness because they would just throw me around. They would try to knock me down and bully me at a young age, and I would just always come back fighting, and I loved it. And it just got me into playing, obviously, recreational sports around here and be able to showcase my talents, but the work ethic that it also taught me, and the discipline that it taught me, that being able to stay focused on the task at hand over and over and over again for a goal that we may not see right in front of our face. I believe that's what it taught me growing up here in Avedon, New Jersey, and being in this area.
And not only did it probably develop toughness, but also the skill level, because you wanted to compete with the guys whose skill level was much better because they were older.
Exactly. They were older, and they, like I said, they didn't take it easy. I mean, because I was a younger kid, because I was just as big as they were, so they wanted to always prove themselves. So I always felt like every day when I was going out to the park to play with my friends, I had to prove myself that I belonged with the bigger kids and the older kids. I loved that.
And so you went to high school. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Colonia High School, just like my mom, my uncle, my aunt, my sister, myself, and cousin. We all went to Colonia High School, and I'll tell you what, it was perfect for me because I had to grow up with kids around Woodbridge Township. So, you got so many different cities in this town where some kids go to Woodbridge, some kids go to JFK, some kids go to Colonia. Well, I didn't really play with a lot of the Colonia kids in the recreational days, so when I got to Colonia, it was like walking into new turf. The Avenel kids go to Colonia, and then reprove myself again, and show that I belonged, and it was perfect because I got to play my last 3 games of varsity football because of an injury, and it earned me a full scholarship to Rutgers University after I had 45 tackles in 3 games, and my coach was recruiting somebody else up in our cross-town rivalry, and saw me during one of the games.
And what position did you play in football?
I played middle linebacker and running back when I was in high school and growing up in Pop Warner and whatnot.
And how big were you at 6'2"? How much when you were playing linebacker and fullback?
I was a big boy, so I played at my junior year at 250, which was way too heavy. But my senior year, I played at 242. It's always funny because I say my 8th grade year, I was still at Pop Warner. We had the weight limit, so I was 5'11", 165 pounds, but weight limit was 145, so I went on a Slim Fast diet and would run 4 miles a day with the bags all on me, on the treadmill, sweatpants and everything, just I had to lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks. And I'll drink a Slim Fast milkshake for lunch and breakfast, and then eat a healthy dinner, and I was able to do it. But then freshman year came, and next thing you know, I was 6'2", 205. And yeah, I was not supposed to be 145 pounds.
No, you were
I
not.
was shredded, but I wasn't supposed to be that size. And then from there, I just kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger as I started lifting weights.
And then what kind of speed did you have in that 40-yard dash at 250 when you were a running back?
I was still always fast. At that time, around that age, I could run a 4.6. And when I got to college, I got up to 275, and my fastest time ever was a 4.7. These guys fly nowadays, but back then, that was a pretty decent speed. I could always run. That was one thing I could do when I run.
4.7 still at 275 is pretty damn good. That's flying. Well, let's go now to the event where that tragic injury occurred. Now, you were playing on special teams when this happened, and it was a kickoff, and you flew down and made the tackle. Now, I actually rewatched the film today. First time I actually watched the film other than being at the game, because I never really wanted to watch that again. But I figured since we're interviewing you, I thought it would be appropriate. Now, when you hit the ground, you were talking to people. What was going through your mind at that time?
I remember I was trying to get up as I made that tackle, and I remember just being able to shake my head. And then I was to plead with some of my teammates, like, I can't move. And then my trainers came running out. They go, Eric, is it your head or your neck? And I said, I can't breathe. Just like that. That's all that came out was just, I can't breathe. And Coach Shiano comes down and looks at me and told me I had to start praying. When he said that to me, I'm not gonna lie to you, I thought my life was over. I remember I closed my eyes and I said, God, take me at ease. And like, this is it. And that was obviously the scariest moment of my life because you can't move, you can't breathe, and your coach is telling you to pray. You don't know where your life was going to take you at that moment. And through the grace of God and the training staff and everyone, they got me off that field and into the ambulance within 7 minutes and on the way to the hospital, which is why I believe I've been able to progress so well through my recovery because, God forbid, I was out there any longer. Who knows the secondary complications that could have came with that.
Were you conscious the entire time on your trip to the hospital?
Well, I'm on the way to the hospital, fully aware on the field. That whole 7 minutes on the field, I was wide awake. I knew exactly what was going on and just trying to be able to breathe and put an oxygen mask on me. When I got into the ambulance is when things got a little bit blurry on the way there. I blacked out. I do remember waking up and getting carted down the hallway. I do then remember blacking out again, waking up. I was in a room now with a bunch of doctors and nurses and then blacking out one more time and then waking up and I was just in a room with just by myself and monitors since I was going off. And after that, don't remember much until that following Wednesday and the injury happened on a Saturday.
Right. And how many surgeries did you have to have?
So it was 9 hours of surgeries. And it was really one surgery. Well, they cut through the front, then they cut through the back, and then the doctor looked at the schedule. He goes, no, I'm not satisfied. He went back through the front and back through the back again. So it was all one surgery, but it took a total of 9 hours until they finally stabilized my neck and just said, okay, I'm satisfied with how the surgery went.
Well, I was reading some articles on the injury, and at first I didn't think you were ever going to be able to eat real food again, that you were only going to be able to basically drink through a straw, and they didn't expect you to have any movement at all. Now I've known you, seen you for a while at different events throughout because I'm in New Brunswick most of the time, involved with Rutgers, and whenever I see you, it amazes me that I see that you can move your head, you can move your neck, you have shoulder movement. So how long was this process to start to regain just minimal function?
It really was those first few months were the most critical times where they really see, how much change can happen with the injury and your nerves and everything. That's the whole shock to the nervous system on what's going to come back and whatnot. But when you look at the, original prognosis, when you're reading on the scans, mine was not, like hopeful, let's just say. It was very grim. So they see that and they're like, okay, they make their judgments and their calculations off of that. But, things started to come back through my face and just sheer of hard work and determination. I always say I feel bad for the person, maybe a 50-year-old woman that's maybe never worked out a day in her life. All of a sudden, injury happens to her and she's put through grueling rehab 5, 6, 7 days a week. I was used to that. So I kind of went right into that rehab mode and, okay, what do I need to do to get better? And I went from benching 415 pounds to then putting a balloon on my stomach and then telling me to breathe in and breathe out. I'll tell you what, that was the hardest workout at the time that it was lifting up weights because literally trying to breathe on your own was a task. But I was able to come off that ventilator within 5 weeks of my injury after they told me I would never be able to, that I had a feeding tube in me. I was able to come off that by Thanksgiving. The injury happened on October 16th and ate solid foods with my family and that. After that, I started regaining, like you said, my shoulders back and things like that. So over those first few, 4 months, things started to really come back for me. And I was able to say, okay, get myself in a healthy enough position to live my life after this injury. And what would that bring?
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, it was a C3, C4 fracture, and Eric was not expected to live. He wasn't supposed to make it through surgery. So just that in and of itself is a miracle. And he, as you heard, gives that to his faith and his fitness. I'm sure had a lot to do with it as well. So take us through. Now you're going through rehab and you finally can move that balloon and you're struggling to move a balloon just to breathe. And tell us how the process progressed.
Well, they always ask you, what are your goals? And of course, when something like this happens, you're like, I want to walk again. I want to walk again. And they're like, that's great and all, but there's a lot of steps to take to get there. And in your mind, you have to say, okay, how do I get from point A to point B without just thinking of that final goal of walking again? And it was coming to an acceptance of it's not going to happen overnight. And obviously, as years go by, you realize it's going to take a medical miracle for them to find a cure for paralysis and whatnot. But in your head at the time, it's just like, I want to walk again, I want to walk again. What am I going to do? So the only thing I knew how to do was go to work. Right. You just go to day by day by day, as we say at Rutgers, you keep chopping. Just being able to get myself healthy, get myself strong, being able to whatever exercise or task that they're on me, be able to handle it and, move on to the next one, just one step at a time. That's kind of how I took it. I was in inpatient rehab for 5 months, which those hallways got real long after a while. You're doing the same thing every single day for 5 months. It was tough, mentally, but I felt like I was built for it because everything that I learned playing just sports in general growing up, and then once I got to Rutgers, say it was one step down from military training, playing football for Coach Shiano. So I felt like I was prepared for the real world and what that was going to throw at me.
So who did you lean on? Who did you rely upon? Who really supported you through those first 5 months and the early part when you came home and you're finally let out of rehab?
Well, it's funny you ask that because when I was first injured, my whole life before that was in a bubble. I thought everything revolved around Piscataway, New Jersey. I thought that was it. There was nothing else going on in the world besides Rutgers football and practice and study hall and weight room sessions and things of that nature. Little did I know that there was a whole other world out there that people were living in, and I started to see other people with injuries and similar situations as myself and hearing their stories, and you're just like, whoa. Like, I would have had no idea about any of this if this injury didn't happen to me. So you start to lean on each other and the people out around there and supporting you and wishing you well. I met friends there and, some great stories and some not so great stories that you hear about, and puts a lot of things into perspective for you, because after my injury happened, since it happened on a national stage, so many people reached out to me and wanted to wish me well and help me and guide me through this process. Meanwhile, there was people there that didn't have anybody, no family members, no friends visiting, no wearing the same clothes all the time. You can't get a home-cooked meal. And I was just saying to myself, you know what? Whatever life throws at me, I'll always be appreciative, because this support that I have from millions of people, I know some of my wishes they could have one person of it isn't that. Meanwhile, I got random people from all over the country coming to visit me to just want to wish me well, pray for me, things of that nature. So put a lot of things into perspective for me.
Yeah, there's millions of people in the United States that suffer from some form of paralysis. And I think it's 1.3 million people have severe neck injuries in the country now. And I know you're a big supporter of the fight against paralysis and believe, and you wrote a book. So you're a great inspiration to so many people. What would you tell the people that are injured, and what are the steps mentally as well as physically that they should realize in order to overcome the tragedy like you have?
The tragedy, first you need to go through your grieving process. Everyone needs to go through that. Some can bounce back quicker than others. Some take a longer time. I get that. My grieving process wasn't like most people. I had the support right away. And I've always been the type of person where people are relying on me for something, or, they're showing up for me. I have to be there for them. I'm responsible, and it's my responsibility. So right away, like, I saw all these people supporting me. It's just like, I can't give up on them. I gotta push. I gotta work hard. When other people that may not have that support, I always tell people we're all going to go through some sort of adversity in life. How we handle that adversity ultimately defines you. And mental toughness isn't a flip of a switch. It's practice. It's trained. It's being able to develop that callus to be able to handle it, being able to go through tough situations where if you were able to survive this, you'll be able to survive that. And I tell people, how do you train mental toughness? Well, doing things that you don't like to do. That's the only way to do it. Like, and I give the best example, the smallest thing. Say you hate getting up in the morning and making your bed. You hate doing it. You just leave your house and do it every day. Wake up every day, make your bed, do that over and over and over again. After a while, trained behavior becomes instinct. If you don't do it, then you feel kind of off. You feel thrown off. So when I tell people when it comes to mental toughness or going through an injury like this, your life has been flipped and turned upside down, and you may be going through a greater process, but you were able to survive. You made it through that process. Life may be a little bit more difficult and it might be harder, but hey, you still were able to survive that moment. Now it's on to the next. What do I need to do next? And how do you figure that out? And sometimes it's not just a direct answer of this is what you do step by step. It's having to figure it out. And that's kind of how I had to do it in the very beginning. But I know without my positive attitude, there's no way I would have all the support that I do.
Well, that's something that I admire about you. Every time I see you, you're smiling, you're joking, you're speaking to people, whether it's at Steakhouse 85 or if it's at a Rutgers event. So, you were injured. You're an athlete. You don't even have your degree yet. So you're really a kid. You're 20 years old when this happened, right? So you're just a young man, like you said, living in a bubble. So now take me from 20 to say 25. You had to grow up really fast. So talk to me about, I know you're announcer at Rutgers, you're involved in, your walk to believe, and such a huge supporter getting involved where Christopher Reeve started. Now you're kind of running with that ball, literally carrying that ball to fight against paralysis. So take me through the process now of 20 years old, you're out of the hospital. What is your next step? Where'd you go from there, and who helped you, and how did you figure it out?
It's actually kind of funny because it started before I even got out of the hospital because I knew I only had 60 credits at Rutgers at the time, and I needed another 60 to graduate. So I said, what am I going to do? I need to get my degree. Obviously, I'm not going to be playing football anymore. So I started taking classes via Skype that January of the spring semester. I was Skyping to a 3-hour lecture hall, and then someone would email me over the notes, and then I would work with my occupational therapist on the computer with this software called Drag and Natural Speaking, where you speak to the computer to navigate around. Let me tell you, it's a lot easier to navigate around with my hands and whatnot than it was talking, but it was something I was determined to do because I'm like, I have to get that diploma now. Because I was always brought raised like, if you don't get your degree, you can't be nothing unless you make it, to a professional league and things like that. So I was like, I want to get that degree. My sister was able to do it for my mom. I wanted to be able to do it as well. So I just went full throttle into that mode. And I graduated with my degree in labor relations in 2014. But that was my main focus when it came to what my life was going to be like. In between there, I was able to start a career for myself with motivational speaking, writing a book, being able to publish a book, and also starting a foundation in between that, 2010 to 2012 when all of that happened, because people were reaching out to me still after my injury, asking, what's the progress? How are you doing? Things of that nature. And I got connected with a good friend of mine now, Sandy Montag, who was my agent. He was the vice president of IMG at the time and brought me onto their speakers division, helped me get my broadcasting career going. Tim Pernetti, who used to be the AD at Rutgers, introduced us and told him that I wanted to become a broadcaster. So we started working with Rutgers Radio Network at the time, and we were getting that going. And then everyone was like, Eric, you have a story to tell. You should be able to tell your story on overcoming adversity to anyone from either if it's a school all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And I had to learn to do it. So I started getting my first speaking gigs, and I would sit there and talk 1,000 miles an hour, and people would say, wow, that sounded great, but I wish you would have paused and let me feel the drama and the emphasis on certain situations. So I had to learn how to share my story and tell my story, man. That's kind of what I was able to do at that time. And then writing a book about my life, and then up to that moment also helped spring more forward my career until when I was 25. But let me not say, I also lived. My friends were graduating college. They came back home and we went out. They partied. They took care of me. And that helped me mentally, I believe, the most, being able to have my friends look at me and my situation and not just like run away or be like, wow, I feel bad for me. No, they stepped up to the plate. They took me out. They brought me about. We went to Miami. We went to Vegas. We did all those things that you do in your 20s.
That's great. Well, you said you were told you had a story to tell, but you're the guy who told the story. Why did you tell the story, and what was the emphasis of your story in your book?
I feel like people always wanted to know more about me because obviously they saw my positive attitude and how I was being able to push through so many things. They're like, how is he able to do this? Well, what happened before? Like, who was Eric LeGrand for the first 20 years of his life before this? And I always tell people I was the happiest, go lucky person there was. I didn't like to put people down. Was I a class clown? Absolutely. I love to joke. I love to have fun, but I never did it in a bullying manner. People loved me for who I was because I treated everyone with respect. And I always had that smile on my face. I always say, what you see is what you get with me. I'm genuine. I wake up happy every day because I know things could be flipped and turned upside down in the drop of a dime. But I wanted to share that with people. I wanted to tell people who I was before my injury so people can understand why I'm able to go about my life the way I am now. And I said when I was laying in a hospital bed and I was 20 years old, I said I made a promise to myself that I don't know where my life is going to take me, but I will not live a miserable life. Do not let this injury, this wheelchair, this disability ever stop you back from being who you are, being that happy-go-lucky person.
Through this journey, did you have any role models or other people that you looked up to that really helped you keep that positive attitude? Because like you said, you had to have some down moments. You know, I was a good athlete, not at your level, obviously, and I don't know how I would have been able to overcome such an injury the way you have and the attitude. So who helped you? I know you were always happy and strong, but who helped you? Who pulled you forward? And who did you look at to say, I can do this as well?
There's a few people. Number one, obviously being my mom. My mom dropped everything that was there for me, and she was always my entire life push me to be better, make sure I stayed on the right path. And when I didn't want to do something, she would nag me and nag me, nag me, yeah, nag me until I did it. And watching her, watching me go through this injury, how strong she was, and my family around her supporting her, sleeping on a cot for 5 months, being in there with me, so I wasn't alone, to being able to adjust her whole life. So she took care of me. Honestly, inspired me. I'm like, wow, look at what my mom is doing. That unconditional love. She could have easily want to live her life and not want to take care of her 20-year-old grown man, I would say son, but she did, and that inspired me to want to get better for her. And then there was a guy by the name of Adam Telefero who I met, who was a Penn State football player back in 2000. He was a freshman going up against Ohio State, playing cornerback, went to go down and make a tackle. He broke his neck. Doctors gave him a 5% chance of ever walking again, and he went through the grueling rehab down at Philly. And I remember he came walking into my room about 2 or 3 weeks after I got to Kessler Institute in West Orange, and he walked with a little bit of a limp. And I'm like, who's this guy? And Eric, you have to meet Adam, blah, blah, blah. And he put on a tape on a DVD player at the time, but it was a CD actually. Put it on, and it was him walking back out to Beaver Stadium after he showed me his injury, what happened to him, and then telling him that he would never walk again. He walked back out to Beaver Stadium. I believe they were playing Miami that day. And to see that 100,000 people yelling and cheering for him, it brought chills down my spine. And still to this day, obviously I've had my moments and whatnot, but that moment right there, really said, you know what? It's going to be a huge inspiration to me to be able to walk again one day. And, God only knows when that day will happen, but I'm still inspired by that video 14 years later.
So take me through a normal day. And I'm sure we always see you up, dressed, in your chair, ready to go, big smile, talking to people. Take me through a normal day. How does it start?
Yeah, it's fun. My day starts every day with two nurses coming, a nurse and an aide come in every morning to wake me up around between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. And they get me up into a sling, get me into a shower chair in my bathroom, and they wash me up literally. I would go to the bathroom, everything, broken down to your, most humblest of humble could be. I'm used to them now, and but the beginning was not easy to adjust to that in life. But now I'm up, and it takes about a 2.5 hour process every morning. I getting back into bed after getting all showered up and whatnot, get dressed, and then get into my wheelchair. From there, I usually have to do breathing treatment, a little chest PT, just because with the spinal cord injury, people don't realize it, but my level of injury, secondary complications that come with that, where I need to make sure that I'm keeping myself, all healthy and the fluid out of my lungs and whatnot. So go through that for about another 15 minutes. And then finally I get on my phone around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and that's when my day starts. So people don't realize that first 2.5 hours every morning when I get up, you're not going to get me. That's when I'm going through my crossing. So most people know. If you need me, wait till after 11 o'clock. And it's been able to work for me, thank God. But most people can't start their day at 11 o'clock. But it's something I have to go through every single day. There's no shortcuts around it. So it's just something I've adapted to. Is it easy? No. Is it fun? No. But I'm not going to let it hold me back from what I want to do after.
So what time do you normally go to bed?
1:30.
1:30.
1:30 in the morning every day. I've always been the night owl person. That's just who I am. So I usually my nurse or aide comes at about 11 o'clock, 11:30. You get me back out of my chair, out of my clothes into the bed. And then I always put on a TV show before I go to bed. And it takes me away from everything that happened throughout the day. Especially I put on the TV show. I watch that for about an hour. Next thing you know, it's about 1:30, and it's like, all right, finally time to wind down and go to sleep. So go to bed at 1:30, get up between 7:30 and 8 every day. So kind of how my sleep schedule.
We know, Eric, that you wrote a book shortly after your injury, and we've spoken a little bit about your walk to believe and your fight against paralysis. What motivated you to start the Walk to Believe? And we had our firm come and partake in the event at Rutgers this year. It was an incredible event. But what motivates you to continue to just keep pushing forward with the Walk to Believe?
Well, first off, thank you, GGL, for all of your support with the walk this year. It was amazing to see, and it's more about getting awareness, getting more eyes on it, because there's so many people that are impacted by paralysis, to just give them that hope. And you guys were a part of my Team LeGrand family now, so I thank you guys for that. But it all started where I had mentioned a random person coming to see me at Kessler Institute by the name of Arlene Gonzalez, who never watched football in her entire life. But she saw my story on the news and she was just devastated. And she said, I wanted to do something. So she made the trek up to Kessler. She visited with my mom and I. And she said, I wanted to do something. And we had heard that so many people everyone was like, I want to do something. I want to do something. So she got in touch with Kevin McConnell, who is Coach Shiano's chief of staff, and said, I want to do something for him. And Kevin McConnell goes, I thought she was talking like a cookie baking sale or something to raise funds. And she put her head together. And if you know Arlene, she don't play. Let's just say that. She doesn't take a lot of stuff. She gets stuff done, and she wanted to start walking. We decided we were going to call it a Walk to Believe. And that first year we did it, it was amazing to see the turnout. The second year, I actually wasn't even able to be there because I was in LA, I believe in the Geisman Award by Spike TV, so I wasn't even able to make the second year. But I didn't know it was going to turn into this annual thing. But after year 2, more and more people started to come out in year 3 and then year 4. And we really started to grow and raise more and more awareness and more money for the foundation. And this year we switched it up by getting Rutgers involved when it came to doing it on the game day this year. So it's amazing to see where that has gone and being the biggest fundraiser for Team LeGrand and the Christopher and Dana Reed Foundation. So everyone that's involved with that, between Arlene's team with James McGuire and her staff, and then the Team LeGrand staff at Christopher and Dana Reed Foundation, it takes a full-on effort to put on that event. And it's amazing to see where it's grown through the ups and downs, the late nights, the arguments, the fights, just trying to get it all together. It always comes back to the cause. And that's raising funds for paralysis and helping us get to that end result and finding a cure for one day so we can live Christopher Reeve's dream, or as a world without two wheelchairs.
So speaking of that, it's been 14 years. Mm-hmm. What achievements and what improvements have been made with the fight against paralysis that you've witnessed?
I mean, I've seen now when it comes to epidural stimulation, that wasn't, it was maybe being studied when I was first injured, but to see people getting implanted with stems on their spinal cords and then being able to go through rigorous therapy sessions, but also just turn on a button and you're seeing the spinal cord work again and reactivating people standing up with a walker or being able to move their limbs and maybe take little steps here and there. It's not like they're doing it all because they turn on a button and we're walking like a robot perfectly ill, but to see people regaining back function and being able to, just getting back little things, whether if it's bladder function, bowel function, sensation throughout their bodies. That's the progress I've seen over the past 14 years, where I'm like, you know what? We're getting there. And obviously, the world we live in now that's always evolving.
Right.
People are always coming up with new things. So that's why I truly say in my lifetime that we'll find that cure for paralysis and I will be able to walk again because there's more eyes on it now. There's more research being done compared to 20 years ago when it's kind of in the shadows, the thoughts of being in the neural world. People are afraid to enter it because you really don't know. It's so many things that make up, the nervous system and just all the ways that the nerves are intertwined together. So people didn't touch that, but now people are more and more intrigued about it. I'm just happy to be in this part of it.
Yeah, neurology is an incredible field. I'll tell you, some of the most intelligent doctors I've had the pleasure of interviewing have been neurologists. They're really incredible people.
Same.
And they're helping with this fight. What progress have you seen personally? Remember, you weren't even supposed to be able to swallow a piece of food. So tell us how you're progressing.
I still do therapy. I have a therapist come to my house once a week where I'm thankful I have all my equipment here in my house where I don't have to go to Kessler all the time. Like I was going to Kessler outpatient 5 days a week at one point, and then obviously life comes and you gotta be able to make a living for yourself and things like that. So all the way up into the pandemic, I was still going there 2-3 times a week, and then the pandemic came in. Everyone's life shifted in turn, and I had a bunch of equipment always at my house that was pretty much just collecting dust because I was going up to Kessler and doing it. So, I hired a therapist to come to my house, and now we get after therapy weekly at my house. I have all the equipment here, but I tell people like, okay, what is your progress that you're making? I'm like, how you go to the gym to keep yourself healthy and in no shape? That's exactly what I'm training to keep myself healthy and shape for when that medical and lyrical comes and we find that cure for paralysis. I'm able to, my body will be strong enough and be ready for it. So that's what I'm just doing, keeping myself and my body in shape as best as I can, physically. So then I'll be ready for when that medical breakthrough comes. And let's just say, I'm not the guinea pig for anything. I've been asked to do different studies and tests. You won't see me line up to be the first one, but if it works, I'll be all on it.
What can people do to help? People that are watching, what can they do to help?
Continue to give funds to this because I know people say funds, where is it going and things like that. You can see the medical miracles that are happening. Just go to ChristopherReeve.org. You see the families that are being happened. But our motto is today's care, tomorrow's cure. People always just think we need to find a cure, but no, that's the care of the people that are going through this every day. The grants that the Reeve Foundation is providing for if it's different therapies or if it's trying to help build different, maybe putting renovations on houses, just grants that they're able to give up, whether it's legislation and laws, going down to DC and fighting for the right laws, There's so much that goes into giving back and giving funds to it. It's unbelievable how much things cost in the medical field, I'm sure you know. So just to being able to help a little bit can change so many people's life. 5.6 million Americans are dealing with some sort of paralysis. Right. So continuing to give funds and raise awareness as we will continue to fight for the cure. We got to take care of the people that are dealing with this on a daily basis as well, with insurance policies and claims and all of that.
Well, talk a little bit about your walk to believe. So tell us. I know I did it. What was it? 3.2 miles. I had to run. Is that what it was? Because I know I took a picture of it off the treadmill with my cell phone. Right, 3.2 miles, and then you have the big event. And this year was at Rutgers. It's an annual event? Is that correct?
It is an annual event. So we do that event. Usually we do it in person in June, where we get everyone at Rutgers in June, and we do the 3.8 to 1 mile. That is that 5K around Bush campus. That's usually what we do. But this year we switched it up because we wanted to get more people involved in. We wanted to do it on a game day atmosphere where more eyes were getting on the mission and cause. Because you do it in June, the people that know about it really are come out and support you. But no one's on campus in June. Everyone is home. Mm-hmm. So we switched it up and did it on a game day where they literally had everyone there that was showing up for a Rutgers game now getting involved. Obviously, we didn't do the 5K that day. But we challenge people to do it on their own, as you said, on the you can do it on your treadmill, and then meet up for this celebration at the end. After that event, there were so many people that were like, "Whoa! Like, what was that? Like, I want to be a part of that. Like, are you guys doing that next year? Where it's now become a Rutgers tradition, or we do it every year, and that will draw more funds, more eyes on the cause and the mission. So, I believe we really hit it out of the park with that one. But a lot of people don't always like change, and we're so used to doing it one way, and that was it. But I believe it was really good that we did it this year. You guys were the first ones to be a part of it.
It was a great event, and I'm glad we could give back. And for people that don't know, not only can you run, you can walk, you could swim. It's all about doing 5K and then to support the fight. So now you're also an announcer for Rutgers. How did that come about? Obviously, you're a football player, but there's a lot of football players that can't do color commentary or announce. So how did that come about?
So my dream was always to go to the NFL, retire, become a sports broadcaster. That was what I wanted to do. So obviously, when my career got cut short playing in college, and I got drafted to Tampa Bay and all that stuff, that was great. It was amazing. But what was I going to do with broadcasting-wise? I kind of got right involved right away by doing the spring game. And I'll never forget, I was freshly removed from the program. So anybody that's played football and knows when you're like a part of the team and everything, you talk like the team. So I'll never get, I get on the radio, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're about to run split blizzard match, swap. And I remember Chris Crone, who was my radio partner, looks at me and goes, what the hell are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, so this is how it goes. Okay, I need you to break this down for me. Football 101. Like, act like I'd never seen a game of football before and then explain it to me. I was like, oh, I'm thinking like everyone else knows, like I know. And then he's like, no. So I had to learn how to do that. So we would do a game, and then Chris would come over my house, literally, well, my apartment at the time before this house was built, and he would sit with me, and we would review the game together and goes, okay, I need you to be better here. I need you to give more emphasis here. Slow down on this part. Like, and he would critique me, and we would go through it until I finally started to get the flow of it. And it's not easy, especially being on the radio. You have the viewer's eyes. Yeah. So you have to break it down for them. It's not like they're watching it on TV and listening. You have to break it down, for them. So I literally had to learn it. And then after a while, you start to get the flow of it. And then you develop your own little personality with it. So it took some time, but it was definitely a lot of hard work studying and just being, making sure you're keeping up with the game during the week. Your preparation during the week is everything, because once you get on there, I always have a hard time with names and stuff. And Kush made a board for me where he would put it in front of me where I could really make sure I'm pronouncing the names properly. So I can't thank him enough for all the help that he's given me.
And he's a great play-by-play guy. I've watched him. I've been in the booth with him. He's incredible. So
the voice of Rutgers, baby. They had Pandemonium Piscataway back in 2006. But yeah, he's the man. I call him Grandpa because now we joke around, because now I start acting up on there. I start yelling at the referees, and he yells at me during the commercial breaks and whatnot. And I'm just like, stop it on Grandpa. Let me yell at them. They deserve to be yelled at.
They do have some bad calls. It's so funny, though, that you have to break it down to be very simple. I can remember coaching Pop Warner. I came out, and I'm calling plays, like a 26 counter or 26 dive power, whatever it is, very simple. I had a coach come up to me, he goes, I've been coaching here for 6 years. I didn't know the holes had numbers. I was like, oh Lord, no, that's scary, isn't it? There was a guy coaching Pop Warner that didn't know that the holes in the running backs were numbered. So
that's funny scary. You bring that up, because I said growing up too, people ask me like, Pop, what were your Pop Warner days like? And I mean, back then it was just like you get wherever dad wanted to go out there, you run full speed into each other. Now, obviously, you got to be certified and go do different courses. But when I was growing up, it was like whoever's dad had the time to do it and jumped out there, and you run full speed into each other. And that was it. That was, obviously the danger of the game, and I teach the proper techniques at that age. But it's evolved, let's just say that.
It really has. And what's really nice about USA getting involved, USA football getting involved, by protecting the head, because they're worried about concussions, they're not really thinking about neck injuries. But when I was growing up, I don't know how it was when you were growing up, we were taught to really tackle with your face mask. Yeah. And then what we teach now to the kids is, you're tackling with your shoulder. They even tried 1 year to try to do the rugby tackle, where you actually put your head behind the body, but they found that nobody could tackle that way, so they went back to get your head across and make sure you're hitting with your shoulder and not your head, which is fantastic to get the head out of the game. Yep, right, bite the ball. Remember that?
Oh yeah, I always say I'm like the last generation of that old school mentality type. I grew up in the 90s, so before like everything started to change it as we got into, the after this 2000. So I remember all of that stuff. And like I said, running back then, if you knock somebody out with your helmet, it was celebrated. Like, everyone would jump on you, praise, and meanwhile, you're walking around like, whoa, what the hell? What just happened to me?
Yes. Now it's targeting, and you're ejected from a game. Now you use your helmet at all.
Or you're fined a lot of money too.
Which is good, because they're really trying to protect the players now, which is great to see.
I am old school type of player. I get it. When you're running full speed into it, it's hard to make those judgment tackles. So sometimes I'm like, come on, you got to let them play. Like, it's not easy. But then there's the ones that are very egregious where you're just like, well, you can't do that to the player. Like, you can't do that. You're really going to hurt somebody.
Yeah, the ball's overthrown and you can't take that cheap shot anymore.
Yeah, people used to get blown up.
Oh,
You remember the segment on ESPN, Jacked Up?
Yeah,
I live for that. Every you want to watch that on Monday morning and all the dudes that got jacked up toward the They don't do that no more, though.
They can't do it anymore, but it was fun. And then, hopefully the game keeps getting safer and safer. It's not the same game that we used to watch and play, but it's still a great game.
It is.
So even though you were injured playing football, you're still so involved in it and you're a proponent of the game. How do you separate what happened to you from being involved with the game?
My injury happened on one split second. It was just, I had my head down the wrong way thinking I was going to tackle with my shoulder. Body got twirled in the air. My crown of my head goes in the back of the. But all the things that this game has taught me and the lessons I've learned, the man that it's made me, there's no remorse towards the game. It taught me toughness. It taught me discipline. It taught me leadership. It taught me how to work together as a team. Right. The game of football trained me to be for the game of life. And that's why I'll never have no ill will or remorse towards the game because of all the lessons I've gotten from it, the friendships I've made, the relationships I still have with my old teammates. And people say, what do you miss the most about football? It's not running the gashes. It's not the practice. It's the locker room.
Yes.
It's the locker room. Being in that locker room after a hard practice or after a victory is something special. Even after a loss, being able to pick each other up and see really where the bonds are made in that locker room, man. And we always say, the stuff that comes in the locker room stays in the locker room. That's the stuff I miss the most, I'll tell you.
It better stay in the locker room. There seems to be a lot of problems coming up with that stuff.
Exactly.
But that's the busting that goes on, the teasing, and just it's a great atmosphere to be in the locker room. And that's truly what I miss the most about athletics as well. It's just that camaraderie and the laughter. I still even say today that some of the best times I ever have are just hanging out with your friends and laughing. And a lot of that goes on in the locker room.
It is. It's where friendships are made and they last forever. Is that I still have a group that I talk to every single day in a group message from my teammates. And then my high school teammates, there's 14 of us that grew up playing football, baseball, and basketball together. We talk 1,000 text messages a day. Probably all go to jail if it got released. Right? But it's just those friendships that were made at those moments in that locker room where it lasts a lifetime.
And so we've talked about your career as a broadcaster, and now you're also a motivational speaker. Tell us some of the places or people the most unusual groups that you've said 10 years ago or 14 years ago, man, I will never talk to these people. What are some of the people that you've spoken to that you've said this would never happen?
I mean, I've been all over from speaking to kindergarten kids, trying to just talk to them about living life and enjoying it and listening and stay disciplined, all the way to speaking to Pfizer's annual sale meeting. So you're like, whoa, like you go from, two ends of the spectrum right there, all the way at the top to the bottom like that. It's just like, wow, it's incredible to see how my story is so versatile. But it really could work for anybody because it's just all about, staying disciplined, working hard, overcoming adversity, overcoming challenges in your life, being able to not get down, not fade out when you get knocked down, being able to lift yourself up and being able to still go out there and live a life to the fullest even after things happen to you. And I think that resonates with everyone. I tell different stories depending on who I'm talking to about that. Like if a sales team says, like, I want to inspire my team to get more sales. I'll talk a little bit more about, things that I can't do, but I'm still doing to pump them up a little bit. Or if I need somebody to say, I need a little pick me up here because someone's going through a tough time, they just lost someone, then I might be like, listen, I saw this happen to me. I lost a lot of people through my way. I share my experiences and then being able to put that into perspective for other people. And I think that helps so much because I say I'm real, I'm authentic. I don't have the script in front of me when I go down. I don't have bullet points on the board when I go do my speeches. I tell my stories and hoping that can help other people through their lives. So,
well, it's going to help me tomorrow morning when I wake up at 5:30 to work out, and I'm saying I really don't want to do this, and I'm going to say, shit, what Eric's going to go through for the next 2.5 hours is nothing compared to my workout. So I'm gonna get it done now.
It just puts things into perspective for people.
It really does. So if there's anything else you'd like to share, where does the future? What does the future hold for you, Eric?
I just want to keep on growing my businesses. You know, I have my coffee shop where I want to be able to keep on growing LeGrand Coffee House, where we have our online platform where we can sell throughout the country. And then we have one of our flagship locations in Woodbridge, New Jersey. We want to that'll hopefully franchise those one day. And then I got into the bourbon business.
I see your billboards. They're next to ours on the bourbon. I'm like LeGrand bourbon. So how the heck do you coffee to bourbon? How'd that happen?
I take care of people in the morning. I take care of it in the evening. That's
there you go.
But I got into bourbon because people see me all the time drinking cocktails out and about, and sometimes people are like, "Oh, he's in a wheelchair. He's drinking." I'm just like, just because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean I can't enjoy that type of stuff. So I wanted to kind of end that whole stigma of that. And then I reached out to my friend who's now my business partner, Brian Axelrod, who's been in the business for 25 years plus. And I told him I want to start my own brand. And he was like, yeah, you and everybody else. And then he said, you know what, your story's authentic. It's not going nowhere. And it's really, we got a foundation that we want to get behind it as well, because everything we do is for a purpose and a mission. And we want to be able to give back to the foundation. So we decided to come up with a bourbon because, one, we both enjoy it. Two, it fits me. It's tough, it's gritty, and it also takes patience and time to make, just like my recovery. So we don't run, but we want to make sure that we got some good product too, because you could start all these businesses and whatnot, but if your product isn't good, people will support you one time and then they'll never come back again. So it really got into the whole nitty gritty. We've been blessed by the bourbon gods, but hopefully one day I'll be able to retire early because of that business.
Well, I'm going to have to go out and buy a bottle of the LeGrand bourbon because I do enjoy bourbon. So I'm going to have to go out and get a bottle and see that. And I drink enough coffee. I start my day with a quadruple espresso. So that's how bad I am. And so I'm ashamed to say I haven't tried your coffee yet either, but I will take care of both now.
I love that. I appreciate it.
So now that we've got the coffee, the bourbon, I know you get a lot of sneakers at your cell. You know, what else is in the future for you?
It's a great question. I always try to tell people like, what is a day in the life like, or what is your life plan like? I would say, you know, the mad scientist that has all these quadratic equations on a board and you're looking at it like, what? And at the bottom right corner, that's the solution. That's my life. It's all over the place here. One day is this, the next day is that. The next day I'm doing this or whatever. I'm here with Foundation this, speaking here, whiskey event here, coffee stuff over there. That's my life. And then at the end, we'll figure out what that solution is. But in the meantime, I just keep on plugging away day by day by day until one day I'm sitting on the yacht with a fedora and a cigar in my mouth, just enjoying life in the middle of the Mediterranean.
Well, when you're doing that, give me a call. I'll join you. So for everybody watching this podcast, if you ever think you're having a bad day, just replay this podcast. This man is a motivation to everyone. Anyone who's met him, he always has a smile. He's overcome so much. He is a great role model for your children, for yourself, for everybody. I'm proud to know him and proud to be a partner with the Walk to Believe in Eric LeGrand. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence.